Maladomini, the seventh layer of the Nine Hells. A place where cities are built and then immediately torn down to reuse its materials to build another city. A city that once finished will succumb to the same fate, leaving the layer scattered with countless ruins of places that were once beautiful. All because of the Archduke's obsession with perfection. Nothing is worthy for him, and everything must be redone so that this time it will be perfect. But it never is. Let's discuss how each edition describes the seventh layer of hell. In first edition, Maladomini is similar to Malbulge, with its clouds of blood-red steam and scorching hot ground with vapors rising from it. However, Maladomini has a solid surface, though it is twisted and deformed by continual building and rebuilding of domains. The layer has only one inhabited city, Malagard, but it has many abandoned cities and ruins. Vast quarries dot the landscape where lesser devils and slaves ceaselessly toil, mining chunks of stone which Malagard and the Malabranch castles are built from. Roads span the entire layer, connecting quarries to the fortresses where Malabranch live and defend the layer from. These roads cross over many rivers of molten lava, from which canals are cut to encircle each fortress with a moat of lava. The entire layer is surrounded by a great sea of lava. In the center lies a ring of volcanic mountains, which encircle the layer itself. In second edition, the layer is described as a place of decay and ruin, a place that used to be beautiful, but now is defaced or destroyed in some way. Strip mines emit foul vapors, filth litters the poorly maintained roads, slag heaps burn whatever stunted tree might have once survived here, etc. Instead of rivers of lava like in first edition, there are canals that are clogged with waste and pollution. Baalzebul forces his servants to build him a new city, then deems it not worthy enough for his magnificence, and orders an entirely new city to be built. These construction projects usually involve plundering the old cities for raw materials, thus littering the layer with countless ruins. These ruins are home to runaways, deserters, and creatures from other planes. Baalzebul will send forces to clear them out, but they either escape to another city or to tunnels beneath the city. All sorts of unfriendly creatures could be found here. In third edition, Maladomini is described the same way as it was in second edition. Crumbling cities dotting the landscape, sludge-choked rivers winding through strip mines, dying forests collapsing, succumbing to rot or bursting into flame, etc. A place of decay, rot, and filth. In fourth edition, it's described the same way, except it's located in a giant cave like every other layer. In fifth edition, Maladomini has the same description of a place that used to be beautiful, but now consists of dead cities, empty quarries, heaps of slag, and swarms of hungry flies. However, one key difference I notice in fifth edition is, according to Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, Maladomini used to be the seat of bureaucracy for the Nine Hells, where every edict, law, and order was copied and filed away into the countless fortresses that kept being built to hold all of the records. When Baalzebul was trying to overthrow Asmodeus during the Reckoning, he started altering documents that passed into his care to enact his plans. Now, plotting to overthrow Asmodeus isn't illegal, but messing with the law is, and when word got out of his treachery, the other archdukes waged war against him. These battles devastated the land and turned it into the ruined and rotting wasteland it is today. 5th edition's goal with the layers of hell was to give each one a distinct purpose. The purpose of Maladomini is to hold the records of every document in the Nine Hells: edicts, laws passed, scientific treatises, policy statements, etc. These are now stored in underground archives so that if another devastating war broke out, they would remain intact. Rulers. Baalzebul, the Lord of Flies and Lies, rules the 7th layer of hell in all editions. In first edition, he is described as being an archdevil of great power, second only to Asmodeus. In that edition, he basically just looks like a humanoid, but his eyes are that of a fly's and he has horns. In second edition, his lore is expanded upon. He used to be an archon on Mount Celestia named Triel, but was thrown down to Beator because of his selfishness and relentless pursuit of perfection. Asmodeus could sympathize with the long fall to hell and made him a noble. Baalzebul excelled in infernal politics and overthrew the previous lord of the 7th. During the Reckoning, Asmodeus stripped his rule over the 6th layer of hell because he did not want him ruling 2 layers if he was plotting to steal his throne. Asmodeus also destroyed his handsome features and gave him an ugly slug-like form. He is rivals with Mephistopheles, both believing they can undo the consequences of the Reckoning by destroying the other. Beelzebul is obsessed with perfection, constantly having new cities built because he can imagine his perfect city in his mind, but cannot make it a reality. The same can be said of his political aspirations. In 3rd and 4th edition, Beelzebul is described in the same way, a horrid slug form that constantly lies and is obsessed with perfection. In 5th edition, his lore is retconned some. To ensure Beelzebul's loyalty, while still taking advantage of his superior intellect and propensity for lying, Asmodeus enacted 2 laws concerning him. Whenever he lied to a devil, he would transform into a hideous slug-like creature for 1 year. This worked retroactively, and he endured this form for a long time, only recently working off all his transgressions and returning to his former humanoid form. He now never lies to devils in order to keep his current appearance. The other law is that any deal Beelzebul strikes will end in disaster for the other party. Other devils avoid forming alliances with him because they know it will not go their way, but mortals are oblivious to this fact. These limitations neutralize his ability to scheme, so now he ensures that the Nine Hells' bureaucracy runs smoothly and spends most of his efforts accumulating souls in the material plane, which his talent for lying is well suited for. The types of mortals he makes deals with are usually ones desperate for redemption, such as the restoration of lost status or recovery of resources that were lost because of treachery or incompetence. What these mortals don't know is Beelzebul is a master manipulator, embedding clauses to trip them up. Beelzebul acquires many mortal souls, however most of them are pathetic, incompetent wretches best suited for the Dreg Legions to die a slow death so that they may delay the advance of an abyssal army. So as you can see, 5th edition switched his lore up a little. Instead of just being turned into a slug form forever but with no other stipulations, now he's only turned into a slug form whenever he lies. And he has now worked off all of that time, so he continues to not lie to other devils to keep his true form. He can still lie to mortals as much as he wants, there's no punishment for that. And then also the whole fact that anytime he strikes a deal, it always ends in disaster for the other party. So he's kind of got these limitations on him now that were never like mentioned in older editions. In fact, even in like 3rd edition, it was specifically said that he lies a lot in his slug form, but like now we know that he can't do that. So he's been retconned. Overall, I think the 5e lore is more interesting. Normally I hate it when they retcon stuff, but I actually kind of like this just because it's not just, oh, he got punished, he turned into a slug, and then that's it. He only gets turned into a slug with these stipulations. Asmodeus designed these limitations intentionally to prevent him from scheming against him and taking the throne, which is what he's most worried about, but they're designed in a way so that he can still get plenty of use out of Beelzebul. His skill at lying is still useful because he can still lie to mortals. He goes by the titles Lord of the Seventh, Lord of Flies, Lord of Lies, Triel the Fallen One, and the Slug Archduke. Vassals. A lot of archdevils have a pronunciation guide that explains how to pronounce them. However, these ones, none of them had it except one, so I'm gonna do my best, but whatever. Baptiste. First consort to Beelzebul. She is quiet, subservient, and afraid of her lord, rarely acting on her own behalf without explicit permission from Beelzebul. She appears as a tall, attractive, but rather forbidding human female with crimson skin, hooves, spired horns, lavender eyes, and bat-like wings. The skin on her back is ivory in shade, and it is said she's rather self-conscious about it. A story goes that a mortal uttered an oath mentioning the pearly spine of Baptiste, and she took this as a summons, appearing before him and killing him with her jaws and claws. Lilith, second consort to Beelzebul. In 1st edition, she was the consort of Moloch, but in 3rd edition onward, she became consort to Beelzebul. I talked more about her in my previous video on the 6th layer of hell, Malbolge. Nebaz serves Beelzebul as herald, meaning he is allowed to move between the layers of hell. He likes his master and enjoys his work. He is physically weaker than most devils, but enjoys a position of higher status than he could achieve alone because of his relation with the Lord of Flies. By Beelzebul's orders, Nebaz has been given magical weapons to augment his means of personal defense. He appears as a handsome man with tiny horns and transparent fly-like wings. He wears a cape and hat of blood-red silk. The cape can create an aura of flames, treated as the Fire Shield spell, 4 times per day. He also wields a flame-tongued sword that can know alignment of any creature it points at and casts 9 magic missiles per day. Barbatos, the Marshal of Maladomini, responsible for all of Beelzebul's armies on this layer, and, through Moloch, the forces of Malbolge as well. Authoritarian and a shrewd judge of his warriors and battle tactics, he has won Baalzebul's trust. He never shows outward signs of personal ambitions, and so he is viewed as being extremely loyal to his master. He moves with lightning speed in combat. If summoned to the Primaterial Plane, he always appears with 2 to 8 Malabranch. On that plane, he can track as a ranger, pass without trace, move silently if he wills, break wizard locks by touch, and detect treasure. He appears as a bearded horned giant with green eyes, crimson skin, black hooves, and a tail. A Bigor. A duke who commands 60 companies of Malabranch. He loves battle and destroying creatures weaker than him. He wields a +2 battle axe and a +2 mace in combat, and can spell turn, as in Ring of Spell Turning, once per day. He appears as an ochre-skinned, hairless humanoid with small horns, black hooves, a forked tail, and large crimson bat-like wings. Zepar, a duke who commands 28 companies of Malabranch. Vicious and arrogant, he rarely engages in combat, preferring to use his magic to bully weaker creatures. He appears as a man dressed in scarlet armor, a grotesque club foot, small horns, crimson skin, and a forked tail. His normal human foot has retractable black claws. Inhabitants. Intelligent devils capable of complex political maneuvering tend to rise quickly through the ranks in Maladomini. Thus, Omnizoos, Palarions, Harvester Devils, and Arinyes are numerous. According to 1st edition, Horned Devils were extremely common, being the main defense force of the lair. Baalzebul also created his own mosquito-like devils from Lemire's called Aparobo. Pit Fiends are unusually absent on Maladomini. Baalzebul assumes them all to be spies for Asmodeus, and is reluctant to allow them on the same plane he inhabits. Outside of devils, the river of filth and pollution birthed a wide array of fiendish oozes such as black pudding, gelatinous cubes, and ochre jellies. Locations. Malagard. In 1st edition, Malagard was the only occupied city in the lair. Quote, "A palace that stretches for thousands of miles and contains millions of rooms." End quote. It consists of numerous black-spired towers linked by many bridge spans that crisscross and slant crazily in all directions. The rooms of this palace are so numerous and vast that not even Baalzebul has visited all of them. Malagard contains many rich and luxuriously furnished chambers and cells for prisoners and larvae awaiting use, but most of these rooms are full of garbage and filth. The devils here cannot be bothered to repair anything, so anything that is broken gets carried by spine devil servants and thrown into one of the millions of unused spaces. Beneath it is a dungeon complex so vast even the devils don't know its full dimensions, and seldom go down there. Many strange creatures are said to roam this lightless underworld. In 2nd edition, Malagard is not the only inhabited city anymore, for devils still live in Grenpoli and many other creatures dwell in the various ruins. However, it is the newest one being constructed, and thus is the largest and most magnificent of all of them. Yet the devils are certain that it still won't be enough to please the Archduke. They have been intentionally sabotaging their own work to make construction go slower, so that they won't have to start over again on a new city anytime soon. In 3rd edition, it is stated that Baalzebul used to demolish and rebuild Malagard over and over again in search for perfection, before giving up entirely and moving on to new cities. It is now in a dilapidated state, filled with inhabitants stuck in a state of fatalistic melancholy. If a creature has spent 6 consecutive hours in Malagard, they can succumb to the sin of sloth. They must make a DC 25 will save anytime they wish to move more than 250 feet from their current location. On a failure, they will procrastinate and come up with trivial reasons to stay where they are. In 4th edition, it has the same description, and in 5th edition, it has yet to be mentioned. Now, you might have noticed in addition to being a city on the 7th layer, Malagard is also the name of a night hag that ruled over the 6th layer in 2nd and part of 3rd edition. As far as I can tell, there is absolutely no relation to the two, and I have no idea why they use the same name. All I know is that the city came first. Grenpoli, the City of Diplomacy. In 2nd edition, this domed city is a place of pure politics that best typifies the Batazu's love of deceit and trickery. The devils here put on friendly faces to lure foolish mortals to their doom. It is a place of shifting allegiances, constant betrayal, loopholes in every law, and everyone takes advantage of everything to advance themselves and condemn their neighbors. The city is ruled by an Orin'yes named Mizdim Word Twister, who built Grenpoli 300 years ago, and no one here plays the game of politics as well as she does. Entrance through one of its 4 gates requires a thorough search where they strip you of all weapons that are tagged and then placed in a storeroom, and they give you a receipt for your weapons so you can claim them on your way out. If you lose your receipt, you are shit out of luck, but the devils at the gate of course won't tell you that. There are people who offer their services breaking into these storerooms and stealing your weapons back for a high price, but many of them are spies of Mizdim and will have you arrested once you clearly state your intentions. Any display of power within the city, including carrying weapons or casting offensive spells, is punishable by immediate death without appeal. The militia will discipline lawbreakers with their bare hands and drag them off to prison or court, where Mizdim judges them. If deemed guilty, the headsman will execute them, one of the few people allowed to carry weapons in town. There is something here called the political school. It's where devils skilled in politics will train you in their devious ways for a hefty price or unimaginable service. Quote, "It's said that once a blood masters the political school, he'll know the portals into and out of Beator. Further, it's said that a graduate of this school has learned to think so much like a Batazu that nothing on Beator is beyond his grasp." End quote. In 3rd edition, instead of guards searching for weapons, enabling the option to sneak in or steal the weapons, instead, the city is protected by a magical ward that teleports any weapons out of the city and makes offensive spells and summoning spells simply fail. The city serves as an accidental sanctuary for non-devil residents escaping punishment. Devils must stop their pursuit if their quarry escapes here, and so the outside of the city is filled with devil enforcers waiting to intercept any wanted individual. They also send devils into Grenpoli to arrange for non-violent intrigues designed to inspire their targets to abandon the city. It also provides a neutral ground for rival devils to negotiate deals or work out their differences without fear of ambush. In 4th edition, it has the same description of being the embodiment of infernal politics and violence being illegal. The main difference is that it sits on the river Styx. Mizdim has been retconned from an Orin'yes to a Cambion, and while Mizdim is the official ruler, it is actually ruled by a pit fiend named Linfant, the chief administrator of the infernal bureaucracy. Now, the first few layers of Hell already had a lot of locations and detail from 1st and 2nd edition. However, the deeper layers didn't have more than 2 or so locations because they knew very few player characters would actually go this deep into Hell. However, the Fiendish Codex 2 from 3.5 edition wanted to make sure that each layer had a similar amount of information, so in these later layers, there's a lot of locations they made up specifically for this book and thus aren't mentioned in any other edition. So let's go through those 3 really quick. The Palace of Filth, a bubble of dung and refuse. It used to be Beelzebul's palace, but when he was transformed into a slug, his palace collapsed into a pile of fecal sludge. He carves out corridors and rooms by crawling through them, and must frequently reinforce it with slime secretions, otherwise entire sections will collapse and smother any inside. Barriers of force stop anyone he doesn't want entering from going inside. Attempts to dispel this force are made as if they were cast by a 35th level caster. The Carnival Eternal. Under an unblockable sluice pipe that continuously rains filth upon a mucky vale lies the Carnival Eternal, where devils indulge in unspeakable diabolical pleasures. Devils that bring Beelzebul souls are rewarded by being allowed here. One of the attractions is a mirror that if you wipe the sludge off of, a devil looking into it will see themselves ruling a layer of hell, usually Cania or Dis, never Maladomini. A mortal who looks into one of these mirrors must make a DC 30 will save or succumb to a suggestion spell. The suggestion will enact upon a trigger, such as insult the first pit fiend you see or attack an ally that casts the cure spell on you. The Carnival Eternal is actually mentioned in 4th edition, but it literally just gets like 3 sentences, and instead it's called the Carnival Macabre, but it's basically the same thing. Ophalion. This city simulates different population centers on the material plane, and certain districts of it might be replicas of actual places the player characters are from. Here, they run detailed simulations of targeted political activities in order to train devils how to influence and corrupt mortals. These students might take part in a clerical synod or a fake conference of elf princesses. Mortals are occasionally pressed into service to take part in these simulations as ringers, advisors, or disruptive wildcards. That is the lore on Maladomini, the 7th layer of hell. Thank you for watching, and remember to subscribe to see more D&D related content.